That night, the moon never rose, the stars held their breath, and the air felt heavier than usual. Rango stood under the sky, waiting for something to move. But even the shadows refused to come out. The night had arrived, and it brought no light with it. As Rango walked through the village, he noticed something wrong. The lanterns burned bright, but no object cast a shadow. Not the trees, not the houses, not even him. The world had forgotten how to reflect light, or maybe it just chose not to. The clock tower had stopped at exactly 12:07. The moment Rango looked at it, the glass cracked, and a long, black vine slithered out from the face. The ticking was gone, replaced by a low, distant growl that sounded like it came from inside time itself. Leaves floated upward. Trees bent toward the sky like they were trying to escape the ground. Rango stepped forward and felt the wind pulling him off his feet, like something above wanted to take him, not kill him, just remove him. He bent down to drink, but the stream didn't reflect the world around him. Instead, he saw himself, older, dirtier, bleeding, trapped beneath the water, mouthing the words, "Don't follow the second night." Then the reflection vanished. The tree wasn't solid. It pulsed beneath his hand, warm like flesh. Then it whispered his name, not once, but dozens of times. Each whisper sounded like a different voice from his past, even ones that had died long ago. The sky blinked, not once, but twice. A second night dropped like a curtain. Street lamps exploded in sparks. The air grew cold enough to freeze breath mid-air. Rango dove under a cart, but he knew the real night was just beginning. Out of the fog came the hollow ones, tall, faceless, wrapped in sheets of moving mist. They didn't walk, they hovered. One turned its head, slow and stiff, in Rango's direction. It had no eyes, but Rango felt completely seen. The forest folded like paper. Paths curled in on themselves, gravity pulled sideways. Rango clutched a tree root as the jungle tried to turn him into something unshaped, something no longer belonging here. A broken radio buzzed in the dirt, playing a child's laughter in reverse. Then it spoke. "You're not supposed to hear this yet." Rango stepped back as it burst into flames, but made no sound as it burned. Inside the tunnel, the walls rose and fell like lungs. Every breath it took felt like it inhaled part of his soul. His torch dimmed. Something wet and invisible brushed against his neck, and the tunnel exhaled his name. He found it underground, the moon, cracked and bleeding. A pale light pulsed from within, lighting his face in ghostly tones. Then it blinked, once, twice. Rango realized it wasn't a moon, it was watching him. In the center of the cave stood a deer, motionless, eyeless. Its skin twitched like something moved underneath it. It turned toward Rango without eyes, and still managed to meet his gaze. The rusted door had no handle, just rows of crooked teeth. When Rango touched it, it shrieked, not like metal, but like something alive and angry. The wood around it bled a dark, oily liquid. He held the shell to his ear and heard his own voice, screaming, begging, from somewhere far ahead. "Don't go forward," it said. "But the future doesn't beg unless it already knows you're doomed." A bolt of lightning struck and froze midair. It hovered inches from the ground like a sculpture of burning light. Rango reached out, but the heat pulsed like it had a heartbeat. The insect spelled his name in dirt and leaf. As he walked, a cicada hissed, "We remember you." Rango hadn't stepped here before, but something remembered him anyway. Hands reached from the tree, thin, white, with too many knuckles. One hand held a tiny version of his own hat. Rango froze. Then the tree whispered, "Return what was never yours." He shouted into the canyon, expecting an echo, but what came back was a whisper, and it was older, tired, and it said, "You should have never answered the second night." The sky tore open, not like clouds parting, but like skin pulled away from muscle. Behind it were eyes, thousands of them, blinking in unison. The sky wasn't a ceiling, it was a face. Wolves stood in a clearing, mouths wide open, frozen in the middle of a howl. But no sound came. One of them turned to Rango, jaw still open, and took a silent step forward. The crows screamed names, his name, while flying in spirals. Their eyes blinked sideways. One dropped a feather, and it melted before it hit the ground. Inside the cave, the walls moved, mouths lined every inch, speaking secrets he had never told anyone. He tried to cover his ears, but the voices came from inside his mind. Out of the fog came another Rango, walking backward, mouth open, eyes white. He moved unnaturally, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. Rango couldn't move. He knew what was coming. A sharp, pulsing sound rolled over the land. Birds dropped mid-flight. His bones ached like they were unraveling. He screamed, but the sound swallowed it whole. The spider webs had no spiders, only trapped shadows. Each one twitched like it wanted to scream. Rango passed through, and one of the shadows whispered his childhood nickname. He tore open his coat and saw a clock inside his chest. Its hands spun in chaos. Every tick echoed in his skull. He was no longer moving through time. Time was moving through him. The leaves blinked. One by one, they followed him. The forest wasn't watching him. It was recording him, and he couldn't look away. He ran. Behind him, something followed, tall, crooked, never touching the ground. But there was no sound. Not his breath, not his steps, just the feeling of being hunted by silence itself. Shadows poured out from the ground like oil, writhing, reaching. Rango climbed onto a rock, but they rose up like a tide. One of them spoke, in his father's voice. The stars dangled by strings. The sky twitched like it was held up by invisible hands. Rango looked up and whispered, "Who's holding the controls?" But the sky just blinked. The fireflies swirled and formed one word, Rango. They hovered, then went out one by one, as if something had turned them off on purpose. The darkness that followed was absolute. He dug into the dirt and found a grave. The name on the stone was his. The bones inside were fresh, still warm, still bleeding, still wearing his ring. Rain rose upward. Drops floated past his face into the sky. The world was upside down. But his body refused to fall. He wasn't in his world anymore, and maybe hadn't been for days. The sun appeared, hanging from chains in the sky. It flickered like a broken light bulb. Rango stepped into its light and saw his own shadow walk away from him. He closed his eyes and stood in a white room, a chair, a mirror, a door marked exit. He looked in the mirror, but the reflection didn't move. It just stared. The voice called from the trees. First his mother, then a stranger, then his own voice. "Come home." "Rango," it said. He walked forward, even though he knew home didn't exist here. The stars were being swallowed. Trees screamed. The sky collapsed inward like a black hole. Rango ran, but the world around him turned to dust with every step. Rango opened his eyes in the same spot, the same hill, the same black sky. But his clothes were torn, his face older, and this time, he remembered nothing. We zoom out, far out, to a glass chamber underground. Rango lies motionless inside. Animals watch from behind thick glass, still dreaming. One whispers, "The second night has him now."